You know that feeling when you look at an old photo and it's like you're staring right into another world? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're going to explore this incredible poem by Shirley Toulson called A Photograph. It takes this one simple, faded picture and just unpacks everything. The immense weight of time, that bittersweet feeling of memory, and wow, the overwhelming silence of loss.
Okay, so right away, the poem just drops us into the scene. The speaker is holding this old photograph, what she calls the cardboard, and bam, just like that, through her eyes, we are transported way back in time to this beach holiday from ages ago.
All right, so first, let's just focus on this moment itself. It's a snapshot of pure, simple joy, right? We're seeing the poet's mother, who's just a young girl, maybe 12 years old, on a classic seaside holiday with her two younger cousins, Betty and Dolly. I mean, you can almost feel the sun on your face and hear the waves crashing. It's this perfect family memory, completely frozen in time. And isn't it interesting that she calls the photo the cardboard? Not the picture or the photograph, but the cardboard. It's such a brilliant choice because it really highlights how fragile and simple the actual physical thing is. But this little piece of cardboard holds something unbelievably precious. It's a preserved moment, a real, tangible link to a person and a past that are gone forever. It's basically a portal.
And here, this is where we really feel that deep personal connection. The speaker looks at her mother's sweet face and is just struck by this idea that this moment, this person, existed in a time totally separate from her own life. Think about that. It's a glimpse of her mother as this young, carefree girl, way before she ever became mom. Okay, and this is where the poem gets really clever. It does this fascinating jump forward in time. We're talking maybe 20 or 30 years later. So we shift from the memory that's actually in the photograph to a more recent memory of the photograph. It's like layers of time. So the speaker remembers her mother, now an adult, looking at this very same picture and just laughing. You can almost hear her, right, saying, "See Betty and Dolly," and making some comment about how they were dressed for the beach. And just like that, a whole new layer of memory and emotion gets added to this one single image. And this is where you really see the poem's incredible layered structure. The photograph isn't just one memory anymore. It now holds two completely different pasts. You see, for the mother, the joyful sea holiday, that was her past. But now, for the poet, the memory of her mother's laughter, that has become her past. And the really heartbreaking part, both of these cherished moments are now lost to time. So that laughter, it becomes this huge central symbol. For the mother, yeah, it was just a simple, happy moment of looking back. But for the poet, it's totally transformed. It's not just laughter anymore. It's a specific, precious memory of her mother's joy, a sound that now echoes with a deep sadness of her being gone. Okay, so this brings us to the poem's deeper, more philosophical core. This is where Tolson creates this really powerful contrast between the permanence of the natural worlds and, well, the fleeting, fragile nature of our lives. These lines are just, wow, they're so powerful. The image itself is simple enough, just waves washing over the girl's feet, but the language is absolutely packed with meaning. The sea, which appears to have changed less, is this massive contrast to the people in the photo, who, of course, have changed completely. So the sea here is really a symbol of eternity, isn't it? It was there for the mother's childhood holiday, and it's still right there for the poet in our present. It's this immense, unchanging force that just kind of hangs in the background, watching the short, temporary drama of human lives play out. And then, set against that permanent, eternal sea, we get terribly transient feet. Now, transient just means temporary or short-lived. And this is such a brilliant way to show how human life is just as fleeting as footprints in the sand, right? They're just destined to be washed away by the tides of time. And that alliteration, terribly transient, it really hammers home that feeling of fragility. So when you look at it, the entire poem is really built on these powerful contrasts. You've got the permanent sea versus our fleeting human lives. You've got the joyful past versus the sorrowful present. It's this constant push and pull between these opposites that gives the poem its incredible emotional punch. And now we enter the final, and honestly, the most somber part of the poem. We are now firmly in the poet's present, many, many years after her mother has passed away. This line, this line is an absolute gut punch. It measures time in such a devastatingly personal way. Think about it. The mother has now been dead for about 12 years, the exact same amount of time she had been alive when that photograph was taken. It just completely collapses time and really underlines the true depth of this loss. And then the poem hits us with one of its most complex and beautiful phrases. The poet talks about this feeling of labored ease of loss. I know, it sounds like a total contradiction, right? Labored and ease. So what on earth does that actually mean?
Well, it's an oxymoron. That's a figure of speech where you smash two opposite words together. Labored obviously implies a huge amount of effort, of pain. But ease, that suggests something that's become familiar, maybe even normal. And this phrase, it just perfectly captures the paradox of long-term grief. It's this constant, heavy struggle that you have somehow painstakingly learned to live with day in and day out. It's a feeling that is both totally unnatural and terribly normal all at the same time. So when she's faced with this overwhelming reality, the sheer passage of time, the finality of death, this complex weight of her own grief, the poet just reaches a point where words, they just fail. For this circumstance, this state of being, there's literally nothing left to say. And that leads us to the poem's final, haunting conclusion. The silence that's been left by her mother's absence is so profound, so absolute, that it actually silences the poet herself. I mean, what a stunning use of personification, right? Silence, an abstract idea, is given an action, the power to silence someone. So it's not just a simple absence of sound anymore. It becomes this oppressive, overwhelming force. The grief is just so immense that it can't be put into words, and all that's left is that profound, final silence. So after all that, what does this powerful little poem really leave us with? Well, it's a lesson that life is both incredibly fleeting and unbelievably beautiful. It's a reminder that memories, whether they're in our heads or in old photographs, are these precious anchors we have in the face of loss. It shows us that time is this wild force of both change and permanence. And maybe most importantly, that some grief is just so deep it exists completely beyond the reach of words. In the end, a photograph really leaves us with this incredibly poignant thought. It's a meditation on how we hold on to the people we've lost. It's not through some big, grand gesture, but through the small, fragile things, like a piece of cardboard and the enduring power of a memory that we preserve in our hearts.